Happy Chinese New Year.
How, of course, it's the Chinese New Year. I must, happy Chinese New Year to you. Congratulations, Sophia. And by the way, to everybody in China, if we can say that maybe at the start of the program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which animal is it this time?
Horse.
By the way?
The year of the horse. Yeah.
Right. Mm.
I do want to say, I think we should take this more and more serious, because I see like Macron and Rubio, they all happy Lunar New Year, happy Lunar New Year. Do you know this Lunar New Year, where does it come from? Now, I told you that years ago, it was Obama who made it more like widely accepted. But the original term, actually, it comes with a colonial background.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
I didn't know that until recently. So I did my research. In 1967, now ever since Hong Kong taken by the British, there has been on and off uprisings, protests against the British government. Okay, the British ruling. Not surprising. Okay.
No.
The time 1967 was particularly bad. It was union, it was, a lot of labor movement, and then the people just totally against it, want them out and stuff like that.
Yes.
So the British government was really angry about that. And this happened, I think, around the Chinese New Year. So they were going to celebrate the Chinese New Year, and the British government, to punish the people there, saying, no, we cannot call this Chinese New Year. We're going to change it into Lunar New Year. And and they actually legislated that. They changed the official celebration from Chinese New Year to Lunar New Year as a law.
I think that is something that needs to be made better known.
Yeah,
actually.
Agree. Yeah. I think that we need to do more on this front. Yes.
Absolutely. Can I just say something about Hong Kong? I mean, I've never been there myself. My brother-in-law, as a matter of fact, lives there at the moment. But Hong Kong, as a supposed economic success story, basically only started to crystallize after those very same riots that you are talking about. I mean, it was a terrible place. And if you see film of what Hong Kong looked like, right up to the late 1960s, I mean, it's absolutely grim. Yeah. And bear in mind, we're talking about far and away the longest period of, the decades and centuries of British rule. The reason Hong Kong began to take off economically in the 1970s was because of the greater opening to China.
Yes.
And even at that time, because the China of that time was not the China of today, but even at that time, because China was opening up, that lifted Hong Kong up too. So this is something that I do happen to know quite a bit about, because, as I said, my brother-in-law is there, but also because British imperial history has always interested me. But as the mythology that the British ran Hong Kong well and created this enormous, rich and prosperous place, that it was all the work of one particular British civil servant who came there with all sorts of visionary ideas about, laissez-faire and free markets and all of that, which is a widely promoted claim, by the way, in London. I can't even remember his name, but there's one specific individual. It is all complete colonialist nonsense, just to say.
Yeah. And now it makes sense now, right? One of the things they did is actually trying to, the purpose of changing the Chinese New Year into Lunar New Year is because they don't want the people in Hong Kong to identify too much with China. That was the whole idea, their identity. And they are against the, foreign invasion, that kind of thing. So that's what they did. But of course, it also tells us that during that time, there was a lot of uprisings, there were lots of protestings. So eventually, the British did give in some rights and promoted more Chinese and giving the Chinese people there, the locals, more opportunity. And that's combined with opening up China, that lead to today's Hong Kong.
Correct.
I think you have a very good point that, all these things that need to be corrected. There's too much Western propaganda and the British propaganda. Yeah. Well,
the British have an incredible ability to forget. things that they did in the past. I mean, it really is amazing how selective their memory it actually is.
Yeah. So the more I read about it, the more I think like it's not just a simple name thing. We do need to know this Lunar New Year actually is a colonial product, you know. So and not to mention, if you follow the lunar calendar, there is a real Lunar New Year, which is celebrated by many Muslim countries, in particular Iran. And this year, the real Lunar New Year actually is in June. So it's disrespectful for both. Like whatever that is, you know, I can just change names.
Most people I know in Britain refer to the Lunar New Year, and these are many people who are very, very progressive, who have good feelings about China. It's just the name that's stuck. So just the same.
I think the Chinese government need to do something about it because anyway. I mean, they even put a law to change that name. I mean, they must take this very seriously, right?
Well, I mean, there's the other celebration, which happens, I think, in the autumn, which is when Chinese people remember their ancestors, isn't it? And that time, and that's the time when you have mooncakes. And
that's the Moon Festival.
The Moon Festival. So it does seem a bit. I mean, it does. I wonder whether this is because the Chinese have the Moon Festival that.
They mix it together, possibly, Some people, exactly. Exactly.
It's the sort of kind of thing the British colonial officials might think of.
Yeah. The Moon Festival is more like the Thanksgiving, you know, the harvest time to celebrate. So it's a very,
By the way, just for you to know, whether this has any truth or not, you know, I'm interested in Chinese culture and Chinese art history. In Western books about Chinese culture, they harp on Chinese people's supposed fascination with the moon. I don't know if there's any truth about this, but one of the reasons why the Chinese people are supposed to like jade, for example, is because it's supposed to have the same luster as the moon. And you read all sorts of stories about the light of the moon on the water and all of that, that this is supposedly very important to people in China, and that the appearance of snow on the ground somehow reminds people of the moon. I mean, I was only been thinking about that now as we've been discussing all of this. And there's the story about the famous Chinese poet who was drunk and on the boat and fell into the water and drowned himself because he was trying to reach the moon. Anyway, this is one that people repeat all the time. You see it in book after book and article after article about Chinese culture and things of that kind. So, I mean, I wonder now whether this isn't part of, again, Western Orientalism. I mean, it's looking also for, you know, exoticisms about another civilization. And as you must also know, I mean, in the West, in English, we mistranslate Chinese words all the time. And make them always look a lot more exotic than they really are. You know, as in Tiananmen. The gate of heavenly peace. Just as an example.
Well, Chinese people are fascinated by moon, but also equally fascinated by sun. You know,
well,
so
there you go. There you go. I'm sure. Anyway, I just mentioned all of this. I have to depend entirely on Western literature about Chinese art, but I am very conscious that there are these cultural things. In terms of translations of Chinese novels, which I also have read, by the way, I'm always very careful to get Chinese ones. Translations made in China by Chinese scholars into English, like my version of Journey of the West, for example, is a Chinese version. So, because precisely for that reason, I can see that, as I said, this Orientalism comes in, insinuates itself in.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot to need to be done in terms of translations, communications. Chinese government is not very good at that in terms of propaganda. The West is really good at propaganda. The Chinese government is not only not good at propaganda, they're not very good at just basic things like the Lunar New Year. Correct it. If I were the Chinese foreign minister, I would send a letter to both Marco Rubio and to Macron. Right, just tell them that Lunar New Year is not Chinese New Year. If you want to say, congratulations or happy whatever, it's not the Lunar New Year.
Correct. The Russians, by the way, say the same thing about their own government.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just to let you know.
I think so too. Yeah, the Russians.
In fact, the Russians complain that their government is far worse about correcting these Western misrepresentations than the Chinese government is.
Probably.
Anyway, just to let you know.
Okay. Well, Andrew Mountbatten Winsor was arrested but then released. Can you tell us what's going on there?
Well, I am personally surprised and a little bit shocked and a little bit puzzled as to exactly what is going on. Now, he is being investigated for this crime of misconduct of public office, which I've talked about before in earlier programs. Very, very difficult crime to make stick because the barriers to proving guilt are very, very difficult. And in Andrew's case, I would have thought especially difficult because I'm not sure whether being a member of the royal family and a prince is in itself a public office. He was a British trade representative, but this was an unofficial role. Okay. He was never a formal member of the British government, and yet the British government did pay him expenses, but they never paid him a salary for it. So again, I would have thought that he has even more of a defense than say Peter Mandelson does. And for this kind of crime, I would not expect the police to begin an investigation by arresting him. Okay. What the British police do, and it's very tricky, by the way, and very misleading, but what they usually do with these sort of offences is that they write to the person investigating, we've been asked these questions, and we would like to have this conversation with you to see whether we can clear up and understand what is going on. So can you come to the police station on XYZ day? We can perhaps agree a time and we can have a nice chat and we can talk about these things. They do this. This is how they usually approach these kind of cases. And many people get fooled by that, and they think that they can just go along and clear it all up. And often they go there without lawyers, which is a terrible mistake. And then they discover that they're going to be put through the third degree. And very often at the end of the interview, that is when they're arrested. It's unusual to begin with an arrest, and even more unusual to hold someone in a cell for 24 hours at the start of an investigation, and then to carry out a search. I mean, now that sort of thing only happens in one of two situations. Either one, when there's fears that the person who's under investigation is about to run away abroad. And that doesn't seem likely in Andrew's case. Okay. The second one is when there's some reason to think that another crime is going to be committed. Okay. For example, destruction of evidence. And I wonder whether what provoked this arrest this time is that the British police got a tip-off that Andrew still has some important documents or emails left over from his time with Epstein, and that he was about to destroy them. Okay. Because that's the only thing I can think of that would justify this. There is another theory that this whole thing has been staged in order to make it all big and important, in order to divert attention away from the much more serious case, which is the case of Peter Mandelson that we discussed some time ago, who, interestingly, though the case against him seems much stronger, he has not been arrested. No. He has not been questioned. His house has not been searched, and he's not been held in custody, even for 24 hours.
I don't know. This whole thing, it's just as an observer, watching this whole thing is extremely fascinating to me.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That we are witnessing something, I think, extraordinary. Okay, so on the one hand, here's a prince, former prince, being arrested. Supposedly it never happened for the past 400 years. This is the first time. So it's very historical. At the same time, we're also witnessing the biggest cover-up in the Western, the U.S. history of really heinous crimes. Okay, so I just can't get really follow up. Right?
You're absolutely right, and it's what makes me personally very suspicious about this. Firstly, this has never happened before. Nothing like this has happened before. There have been instances when princes have been arrested and have been executed in some cases, but it's always for political crimes, never for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's never been a situation where a prince has been arrested, or former prince, a member of the royal family has been arrested and investigated in this sort of way. And I get to tell you straight away that any arrest of a prince, a member of the royal family, is by definition in Britain a political matter. It is inconceivable that the king was not consulted in advance. The king, his brother, clearly hates him, but that's another story. And the prime minister as well. I am sure that Keir Starmer, the prime minister, was consulted at the very least before this happened. I mean, the arrest of a member of the royal family in Britain, by definition, is a political act, even if there is a legitimate criminal investigation taking place. And I wonder, given how strange the events of yesterday were in terms of the way in which the British police conduct investigations, whether it was entirely a political act, whether your point that we have the greatest cover-up taking place at one and the same time as the most spectacular arrest aren't two things that are being connected, two things that are connected. So we're all talking about Andrew. We're all speculating about what's coming with him. We're all speculating about whether he's going to go to prison. We see all these terrible pictures, photographs of him looking absolutely a broken and deeply shocked man. But we're not talking about all of the other people in the United States who committed every conceivable deed, acting with Jeffrey Epstein, who've been involved in the most extraordinary things, who Pam Bondi has made absolutely obvious are not going to be investigated or asked any questions at all.
Yeah, in the meantime, in the U.S. Congress, they had this hearing, which is a closed hearing for Lesli Wexner, which amounts to basically nothing. He can't recall anything. He denies any wrongdoing. He actually, in fact, according to him, has been conned by Epstein. So he's a he's a victim. Okay.
He's only a billionaire, after all. I mean, you can't imagine him pushing back. Can I just say, I find that story completely ridiculous. As I have said in a number of programs that we've done in the past, I have known very, very rich people in my time. Maybe not as rich as Mr. Wexner, but very, very rich people. And the one thing I can say without any hesitation is that the thing about rich people, the thing that stands out for them is that they love their money. They absolutely love their money. And they are very, very, very reluctant to part with it. And they are very unforgiving when anybody takes it from them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I once said, in fact, that there is no more awesome sight in the world
Mm-hmm.
than a rich man who is parted from any part of his money, and that is absolutely the case.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that Mr. Wexner is going to sit quietly by as Epstein steals money from him, decides, well, I'm not going to have any further contacts with this bad man anymore, but doesn't report it to the police, doesn't bring legal action, doesn't do any of the things that people in Mr. Wexner's position could definitely do. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say straight away that I find that whole idea completely ridiculous, absolutely absurd. He would be behaving like no rich man that I've ever come across before has ever done.
Yeah. And then later they showed footage of this hearing, and you heard his lawyer next to him told him, I'm going to kill you if you say more than 5 words. So even that limited, I don't recall this, I don't recall that, I'm the victim, Epstein, conned me. Even with all that ridiculousness, his lawyer still thought he talked too much. Yes. The whole thing is just, but here's what I think. Don't you think, now Pam Bondi's testimony to the Congress, isn't that a clown show? Is that for real?
I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. I've never seen anything like that in my life. She's the Attorney General of the United States. She is the United States' chief law officer. She has overall responsibility for the FBI and for the entire federal system, and she behaves and acts like that. I just could not believe that. And I mean, quite apart from the fact that she stonewalled right through the entire testimony, the way in which she did it, the insults, the evasiveness, the rolling of the eyes, the behavior was outrageous. I mean, sticking 2 fingers up, not just to Congress, but to the American people.
Mm-hmm. But I wonder whether both her and Kash Patel, they behave like this, is they're counting on Trump before leaving office will give them a pardon for life or something, like what Biden did, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly, it seems to me, that is exactly where we're heading. Mm-hmm. It's quite clear to me that the entire law enforcement system in the United States is basically under instructions, no prosecutions or investigations for anybody involved with the Epstein case at all. None. Not even token ones. And I'm going to say this, and I want to say this again. I think I said this on our previous program. I have never been an investigator, but I have been a beneficiary, if you like, of investigations. I mean, lots of investigators have provided me with their reports, outlined their investigations to me. I've had many discussions with investigators, both public investigators within the law enforcement system, and, by the way, private ones, private inquiry agents and things of that kind. So I know a bit about investigations. The Epstein files are littered with leads. There are any number of leads there. There is clear, probable cause of very, very serious crimes being committed. And you could go further than that and say that there is actual evidence there of crimes being committed. Any investigator who comes to this with good faith would be salivating with anticipation about what they would find. They would be going out there, they'd be talking to people, they'd put together a team, they'd do an organizational chart, they would try and put all the pieces together. And if a serious investigation was done, within months, we would start to get a much, much stronger picture of criminal activity than we've seen up to now.
Well, Lesli Wexner's name was being put there by the FBI themselves as a co-conspirator.
Yes.
But according to the testimony last night, nobody from the FBI ever even contacted him.
Correct. Which tells you that there were some people in the FBI who wanted to carry out exactly the kind of investigation that I've been talking about, and that somebody, this presumably was under the Biden administration, said no. We're not going to do that. Or maybe Trump's first administration, somebody blocked it.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely blocked it. There are somebody both in Florida and New Mexico. They're local law enforcement organizations. I mean, they want to investigate, and they always put a stop from the Justice Department. Definitely. Yeah. The whole thing is, I think nobody will really be punished, including Andrew Mendelsohn. I don't think anybody will be punished, but they will put up a show until we kind of forget about it or no longer care about it, and everybody go free and pardoned, whatever, So yeah, that's what's going to happen. Okay. Bill Gates recently visited China, which is also interesting. My own interpretation is now he has his foundation, so his foundation has some work in China, so that's the official reason for him to visit China. But I think he's doing that because he wants to get away from the United States for a while, and he believes that in China, which is probably true, that people will be friendly to him, which people did. They were friendly to him, but even so, there were people still, when they were interviewing him, still ask about Epstein. So, but it's a very soft question, just to mention, what do you say that you mentioned? And his answer is, okay, he told me he can get people to donate it to my foundation. Come on. He's the richest person in the world. He needs
exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, but even that, I think, make him probably uncomfortable enough that when he got to India, he just recently canceled a public appearance in India. So I guess probably somebody was saying the Indian reporters probably will ask you about that too. So he can't get away from it.
Exactly. Bill Gates leaving the United States to find some, protection, if you like, in China. Who would have thought? Really? I have to say. I mean, I think, by the way, that he's got this completely wrong. What I always say about the Western response to the Epstein scandal is that people in the West are shocked but not surprised. I think in China, India, across the global South, they're just shocked. I think that if further revelations come out, someone like Bill Gates is going to find an even more uncomfortable time in a place like China, and by the way, India, than they would in the United States itself. Just saying.
I think even though there are a lot of people know about Epstein, but there's still a lot of people in China don't know about Epstein. They simply don't, that interested in anything outside China. There are plenty of those people. Plus, even people who know about it, I think they will still treated him, with politeness, with a lot of respect, I guess. So I also think he liked that feeling, being the center. I think he right now probably doesn't get that in the U.S. So that's also probably part of that. And make me wonder whether more Epstein-related people will go visit China. We will see.
Quite. Very interesting.
Okay. Well, to get their feeling, they like to have that, I'm the center, being worshipped, that kind of a feeling. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So Trump said about Iran, he said 10 days he's going to make a decision about Iran. Why does it take so long? And did he even give the exact 10 days? I mean, how can you make a decision like that?
Donald Trump gives deadlines all the time. He says 10 days or 5 days. And then, of course, he conducts his attack on the first day, or maybe at the end of the 10th day, he'll give another 10 days, or maybe he'll forget it. We should never pay much attention to these deadlines that Trump himself gives. Here's my take on this, and it's controversial, and I don't insist on it. I think Trump has understood that this is a massive crisis, that a war against Iran is enormously high risk, that it could turn out disastrously for him. And I think that he's starting to panic and is beginning to become increasingly nervous. So we have all these stories, first in the Wall Street Journal, that this is only going to be a limited strike, and then they're going to wait for a few more weeks to see what the Iranians do, and then only then are they going to conduct the other big strike. That's exactly the kind of absurd idea that people who are nervous and frightened of what they have got themselves into come up with. And then there's this 10-day thing, which is another way of putting off the decision as long as possible. And then you have this utterly bizarre thing about aliens, which has come out of nowhere, which is, releasing all the information about aliens, which is weird even for Trump. And again, it's the sort of thing that people who are under a great deal of stress do. I don't expect the Iranians to back down in 10 days. I think that the Iranians understand that if they did that, they would simply weaken themselves ahead of the next big strike. So I think they're preparing to resist. And I think that's what they are all about now. So in 10 days' time, Trump, if he sticks to this deadline, has to make a decision.
I think Trump, like you said, he looks like he's this tough guy, but secretly, privately, he's a very insecure guy. I think he's, and it shows that he has such a tough time to make a decision. Well, if you're going to attack Iran, attack Iran. If you're not going to do it, just say it. I'm not going to attack you. Let's talk. Let's negotiate. Yes. What's so hard about that? I don't understand, right? He seems like, we do, we don't. Well, what is he doing? So, and at the same time, with also about Taiwan, this arms deal. So supposedly they already signed some kind of an arms deal, but first, unsurprisingly, unexpectedly, the Taiwan's own parliament rejected that deal. So they're saying, because they need money, so they say we're not paying this. I guess the U.S. was shocked, so they sent different people to go there to talk to different parts and in the Taiwan. And then he also realized this will anger China, so now he's saying I'm going to make a decision. So it sounds like they haven't made this decision. I thought they already did, but now they backtrack like I haven't made the decision. Well, either you're going to sell it or not, right? And so everything he does, it seems like maybe this, maybe that, maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know what he's doing there.
Yes, well, many you still find some people who insist that this is all part of some grand strategy to keep the other side off balance. I don't buy that, actually. I think, as you rightly said, this is an insecure, very nervous man, very afraid that things are going to go horribly wrong. He has talked himself into taking these very aggressive steps, but he's very frightened of the consequences. So he talks about attacking Iran, but he says to himself all the time, what if it all goes wrong? What if it all blows up in my face? What happens to me as president in that case? The same about Taiwan. Am I going to arm Taiwan? Am I not going to arm Taiwan? What if the Chinese react badly? What if they cut off rare earths again? What if they start to even think about taking military action? What do I do? What am I going to do? So you get this constant dithering and, making a decision one day, reversing it the next, pretending that you didn't make the first decision, and all that sort of constant game that we have to get, which is exhausting. And on top of everything else, you have this court of people around him who are, or one set of people telling him to go one direction, another set of people telling him to go in a completely different direction. Apparently, Tulsi and Vance are telling him, don't attack Iran, don't arm Taiwan, don't do these things. Others say, well, you must, you've got to show that we are strong and all of this. And if you don't do it, or you will be giving the other side the sense that you are weak. And Trump just listens to the one day, listens to the others the other day. And as I said, it's making him very muddled and confused as well. They are getting very nervous in Washington altogether. I mean, you could see this with Lindsey Graham. He apparently completely lost his temper in a meeting with the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, presumably to discuss Greenland. And I mean, they're all getting nervous and frightened and angry. And when people do that, it's always invariably a sign that they're afraid.
Why doesn't Trump listen to the people, his own base? His own base, the message is very clear. We don't want wars, right? We want you to focus on the United States because American first, okay? Yes. And release the Epstein files, right? Investigate the perpetrators. These are very simple, clear message, straightforward message from his own supporters. He doesn't listen to them.
He doesn't listen to them, and he doesn't go out to meet them anymore. Yeah. I mean, you remember how he used to go on the campaign trail. He used to do that even during his first term. He used to go from all of these places. And so he's now become increasingly cut off from them. I think partly his team are preventing him from doing that. They're telling him, they nearly killed you before. If you go out again, you might have all of these risks. And I think the other thing is that he listens. He's an extreme example of somebody who goes with the last person he speaks to, and I think this is very much what Trump does. And he doesn't want to lose face in front of people like Graham, and he's got all his donors who are also very hardline, very pro-Israel, very anti-China for all kinds of reasons. So he doesn't want to lose their support either. So they're the people who are close to him. He doesn't go out into the town halls across America like he once did, and he doesn't listen to his base. He gets very, very angry when people provide him with opinion polls. He says that all of the polls are fabricated and are lies, which is another sign that he's nervous, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly well-known phenomenon when people retreat into this kind of bunker, which I think is the one that Trump is in.
Yeah. And the Russian and Ukraine peace talks, it was a difficult talk, right? So ended up with no breakthrough. Not surprising, isn't it?
Oh, it's completely unsurprising. From what I can tell, it was a complete debacle. Because again, I mean, first of all, can I just say something about these talks in Geneva? I mean, people in China, Chinese people, I think, need to know what happened. So the Ukrainians didn't want to go to Geneva. The Russians didn't want to go to Geneva. The Americans insisted the talks must be in Geneva. The reason the Americans insisted that the talks must be in Geneva was because they'd already penciled in a meeting with the Iranians in Geneva. Okay. So you had the same team of negotiators, Kushner and Witkoff. Witkoff is a real estate developer from New York. He's got some official position in the US government that nobody can quite work out what it is, but he's got no team behind him. He's not a trained diplomat. He's got no experience of conducting foreign policy at this level. Kushner has no position in the US government. He's just Trump's son-in-law. Yeah. Anyway, they're going from one meeting to the other meeting. They're meeting with all of these European officials who all turn up. Neither meeting is conducted properly. It is absolute and utter chaos. The Iranians in particular are furious and unusually complained about it to Reuters. They said this meeting that we had with the Americans in Geneva, which we thought was going to be a serious one, turned out to be nothing of the sort. And how could it be? And as for the Russians, well, the problem here is actually even bigger, because the Russians thought they had come to some understanding with the Americans in Anchorage, whereby the Americans would tell the Ukrainians, look, you've got to withdraw from this part of territory because the Russians insist on this, and this is the condition the Russians are making for getting serious negotiations started. And the Americans told the Russians in Anchorage, we will get the Ukrainians to do that. And the Americans have done nothing of that kind. They've told the Ukrainians instead that they're going to provide Ukraine with security type guarantees, in effect a military alliance between the United States and Ukraine. The Russians are saying, well, where did this come from? Nobody's spoken about this with us. The Russians are saying we'll be hearing about some kind of document in which the Americans have set out this security guarantee. Where is it? Why haven't we been given it? When Kushner and Witkoff came to Moscow in January, Putin asked them, where is this document I'm reading about in the newspapers all the time? Why haven't you brought it with me? We don't know what Witkoff and Kushner said. So, I mean, everything was set up for this meeting in Geneva to fail, and it failed disastrously. And the Russians this time, probably because they were worried that the message wasn't getting across, brought in their strongest negotiator, a man called Medinsky. And apparently he said very, very clearly, both to the Americans and to the Ukrainians, look, this is going nowhere. We're not advancing, we're not progressing. What is going on? And apparently it's a very, very difficult meeting. And after the meetings ended, the official meetings ended, the Ukrainians called him back and apparently tried to repair the damage, but it didn't really work. And the Russians went back to Moscow, and they're saying it was a difficult meeting and that the meeting was said to be tense. And obviously there was no breakthrough. In fact, nothing was agreed.
What a debacle. Like you said, it is a debacle, right?
Absolutely. Well, I was thinking about the negotiations that China conducted between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which is conducted in complete secrecy. Nobody knew about them. Everything was quietly arranged. The Chinese officials who spoke to each side did it superbly well. We said we have this circus in Geneva.
The U.S., this is how the, probably not just the Trump, but the U.S. like to do that. You know, regarding the rare earth thing, they have meetings, alliances, this plan, that plan. And every time they'll say, oh, we know, to not to be dependent on China, we have this and that. I have yet to see anything. I mean, I know. Kept throwing out, we have this and that. What do they have?
Well, it's also exactly like what they did with the Russians in Anchorage. They said, look, this is our agreement. This is our proposal. Apparently, it's all set out in a document the Americans gave to the Russians. So this is our proposal. And the Russians say, okay, we're happy with this. Let's move forward. And then the Americans don't act on it. And then they do the reverse, and they give Ukraine a security guarantee. This is exactly how the Americans ran the trade talks, which we were talking about last year. I mean, they impose the tariffs back in the spring, then they bring them down again. Then there's another meeting in Madrid. Then they come back and they massively extend the number of companies that are sanctioned. We get again completely against the spirit of everything that was agreed in Madrid. I mean, you cannot negotiate with a country that behaves in this way, that says one thing 1 minute and then goes off and does the complete opposite.
Yeah, you can't trust it. And I don't think they themselves know what they're doing. They know they have to become, for example, rare earth independent, but they don't know how to do that, honestly. So they get together and set up a meeting and they big conference, telling everybody, oh, now we have this, as if it's the problem already been solved. But it's far from resolved, it's
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, on the subject of rare earths, what they should do is they should commission a proper scientific study that would come back with the advice, which of course they don't want to hear, that this is a 20-year project. and they should then adapt their foreign policy in light of that. But then they can work with that study, set out a proper industrial plan, and work to execute the plan. I don't know if I've told you, but about 2 years ago, I received from Russia a report. The Russians, after the start of the conflict in Ukraine and the American sanctions, decided that they needed to sort out their own microelectronics and chip industry, which had fallen well behind, and that they needed to develop a plan on how to become not fully independent on chips, but at least to a great extent. And the result was a very, very carefully and thought out and structured and realistic plan, which is for 10 years. It's a 10-year plan on how to get to the point of producing chips. Not the very highest end chips, because they know that that's even in 10 years, it's going to be beyond their reach. I mean, part of the plan is, we import those from China because, yes, we might be able to develop lithography machines that can help with this, but creating whole factories is going to cost us $15 to $20 billion a factory, which is what the Chinese are spending. And at the moment, we can't. We're not yet ready for that. That's something we might start to think about doing in 10 years' time. That's industrial planning. That's the kind of industrial planning that China does. That's the kind of industrial planning that China did in the 60s when it decided that it would move forward to achieve independence in rare earths. Americans never do that. They used to know how to do it. They don't know how to do it anymore.
The only thing they do is they got lots of people, from different countries.
Yes.
And they have a meeting, and then tell the world they have because there's so many of them. Yes. So this must be something powerful.
Yes. Well, exactly. Well, I'm going to tell you something, another example. I mean, Russian oil to India. Repeated statements that the Indians have agreed to stop buying Russian oil. So the Indian Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, says, look, we make our own decisions, and some of these decisions are decisions that you might not like, which suggests that the Indians have never made any agreement not to buy Russian oil. Well, the Indian ambassador to Russia has now actually come out and said that. There's been no Indian commitment to the United States to stop buying Russian oil.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. It seems everything is in chaos right now. So
yes.
So Munich Security Conference. I find Marco Rubio's speech is extraordinary. So this is what he said. Okay, I wanted just to see your reaction to when he's talking about Europe. He said in 1945. So before that is expansionist, right? The colonization. He thinks that's great. So, but in 1945, he said the great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and the sickle across a vast swath of map in the years to come. In other words, he thinks anti-colonial uprisings are a bad thing. And then he said, but together our predecessor recognized that decline was a choice, and it was a choice they refused to make. This is what we did together once before, and this is what President Trump and the United States want to do again now, together with you. So is he really going back to the colonial era?
Well, that is exactly what he was doing. By the way, even in Britain, people were shocked by this speech. And remember, Britain is the big colonial power. But I mean, even the British were horrified by it because that's saying something, by the way. But I mean, everything was great until 1945. Yeah. Everything was great. We ruled the world. Europe, people with white color. Because the racism here is off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, but we were rulers of the world. Our great Christian civilization, he talks about lots about Christianity. Our great Christian civilization was the one, that was spreading and conquering and ruling. And what a shame, but after 1945, we were in decline, and now we must come back, and we must push back, and we must somehow join together in this great enterprise to take control of the world back again. I don't know what to say about this, either that is certainly one of the most wicked things I've heard from anybody recently. I mean, the idea that we're going to return to a world of imperialism, Western imperialism, is horrifying, but at a moral level. But also, I mean, the fantastic quality of this idea that Western empires of the past can be recreated in the modern world, against countries like China, India, Russia. I mean, it's actually insane.
I just wonder whether this is something that people like Marco Rubio and maybe a bunch of the neocons and, the traditional U.S. imperialist people thinking that maybe a pure form of colonialization, imperialism, probably better than this kind of a converted, because after World War II, the U.S. has been championing for freedom and equality and democracy, right? That's what their cover is, Yes. And but they probably get to the point now thinking we don't need to cover ourselves like that. We just go back to the jungle, right? We are the powerful. We just can grab whatever we can grab, and without any justification for it. This is just the way it is. Maybe that seems like they're saying maybe we should just go with that rather than trying to be nice with everybody. Right.
Well, I think that's exactly what they're saying. I think that is exactly what they're saying. But I mean, basically, they're throwing off the mask. They're saying it's all about power. It's all about imperialism. We after 1945, we pretended it was otherwise, and that didn't work. Now we must come back and be the bad, mean people that we used to be in the past, because it worked so well for us then, and it's going to work really well for us now. I mean, but as I said, it is absurd. I mean, the realities of the modern world are completely different. Let me say something. This is something that in the 19th century, people in Britain used to say. It was actually a slogan. It was a sort of thing that imperialists used to chant at halls and things. And this is Chinese people might be interested in this. They say, whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun, in other words, the machine gun, and they have not. In other words, we have all this technology, so we can do whatever we want, because whatever these people who we're attacking, all these black and red and yellow people around the world do, we can shoot them, we can kill them. Well, of course, the reality is that now everybody has all of that. At today's China, is more advanced in all kinds of areas of technology than the West is. So how is the West going to impose that, do that all over again? When that chant used to be made in late 19th, early 20th century England, I mean, the balance of economic, technological, scientific, military power was totally different from today.
Plus, there are things that you probably don't see much reported that I paid attention to. There's a minor news, but it should be a much bigger news. Like Washington, D.C., the water now is contaminated. There is a E. coli level of drinking, at the Potomac River has skyrocketed because there is a sewage pipe that collapsed. There's multiple pipes collapsed, and so all the sewage went into Potomac River, which is the drinking water source for Washington, D.C. And this thing has been going on for a month. They haven't in control of this. They haven't stopped all the sewage going into the So let alone repair it if they haven't stopped this. Nobody pay attention to it. So Marco Rubio is talking about going back to colonial period to go colonize more places. At home, this is Washington, D.C. we're talking about. They can't even get their water in order. What kind of irony is that?
Well, it is an irony, but it's the one is a product of the other. I want to repeat this point. I live in London, which is the capital of the great empire of not so long ago, by the way. And the effect of empire is everywhere to be seen. In the end, it didn't make Britain a stronger, better place. It made Britain a poorer, weaker, more unhappy place. Some people, some individuals became massively rich on the back of it. Some institutions became very powerful on the back of it. But society, British society overall, was demoralized by it. The burden of empire is borne by the many. The benefits go to the few. And that's exactly what we see in the United States. For people like the new viceroy of Venezuela, Marco Rubio, it's no doubt wonderful to have an empire. You can play around with what the politics of Caracas are. And of course, the money from the oil sales from Venezuela go to this mysterious bank account in Dubai, where it's all in the possession of Donald Trump. But the American people, not only they gain nothing from it, they lose from it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I used to live close there, the Potomac River and everything. So that's why I was like, what? They don't even have control. This is a month ago when they started this. All these pipe collapsed and whatever reason. I mean, they must be not maintained them properly to have this problem to start with. And now there's a crisis. You would think they would immediately at least stop all the sewage going into the Potomac River. A month later, it's still not stopped. I find this fascinating. I mean, this morning I checked. I was like, have they still not in control of it? I can't believe it that they don't even stop it. So.
No, because they're all thinking about other things. They're thinking about Iran, they're thinking about Venezuela, they're thinking about Cuba, they're thinking about, this is where the major focus is. And the bureaucracy, every government bureaucracy, in order for it to work effectively, needs constant central direction. Remember, I've worked in one, so I know you need to feel that the people who are in charge both know what they're doing and that they're fully engaged. If they're engaged in other things like the affairs of Caracas, then they're not going to be engaged with the affairs of Washington, and that's the problem.
There are quite a few Democrats went there. I find that's a little bit unusual. Is it they are all targeting 2028 already? Is that what they're doing?
Yes. I think it's exactly what they're doing.
But I think, so like AOC, for example, it's very clear. She went there to show that she has some knowledge of foreign policy. They think the voters are that stupid.
Well, I think they do, actually. And this is surprising because AOC, who comes from a demographic which I would have thought put her closer to what people really think, or, people. I mean, she's completely lost contact with them, obviously, to me. And of course, she wasn't able to impress the people in Munich either, because her speech was a botch.
It's bad. Yeah, it was really bad. Well, AOC is fascinating to me. So how did she win, to get into the Congress, beating within the Democratic Party establishment candidate, right? The guy who has been there a long time, and people get fed up with him. And so here come AOC, who has this fresh idea of anti-establishment and anti-war and all that sort of thing. That's how she got so popular and got into the Congress. But as soon as she got in, she seems like forget all that. Why didn't she continue her playbook, which was working for her, instead getting into the traditional path? Obviously, she has higher ambition than just being a congresswoman. But why did she so quickly given up on her playbook that carried her?
Well, I think she doesn't have the moral strength to resist the temptations that somebody in AOC's position faces, and very few people do, I'm afraid. I mean, that is the great tragedy of our times. Once upon a time, you would get someone like Abraham Lincoln. He came from very, very difficult circumstances. He fought his way up. He never lost sight of where he'd come from or who he was. And he was, well, perhaps the single most transformative person in American history. AOC is not like that. And it takes a very unusual person to be able to resist the pressures and temptations that AOC faces. And that is the tragedy of the American political system, because it was designed to be close to the people. But of course it's not.
Well, at this point, I'm going to, root for Ro Khanna than AOC. I do think Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, they did very courageous things.
Absolutely, I completely agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, like AOC wasn't even one of the sponsors for this bill. No. That tells you a lot, right? So,
absolutely,
as a woman, she didn't even dare to put her name out there to make this a big issue. I just find it so incredibly disappointing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing I find interesting is that I don't see any reporting about that, but I believe the Chinese media and the Russian media reported that there's a German icebreaker now trapped in the Arctic ice. But they were assisting a German gas carrier, so it was stuck there. And based on what their analysis is, the only people can rescue those two German ships are the Russian icebreakers.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, the Russians.
That's interesting, isn't it?
The Russians have the most powerful fleet. When I say the Russians have the most powerful fleet. I mean, that's an understatement. I mean, the Russian fleet of nuclear icebreakers has no analog anywhere in the West. China, by the way, is building its first nuclear icebreaker, just to say. But at the moment, only the Russians have real experience of sustained icebreaker operations in the Arctic. Absolutely, it's only the Russians who can help. Whether the Germans will ask them for help and what happens if they don't is another matter.
It's interesting, nobody reports that. I find that no major news outlet reported that.
The lack of reporting of important things today in the media in the West is incredible. Like the fact that the United States is about to resume nuclear testing.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that they made that announcement, blame China for it by fabricating Chinese nuclear tests, which everybody knows never happened. I mean, I remember I was there in 2020. You were there in 2020. If in 2020 China had conducted secret nuclear tests, we would never have heard the end of it. I mean, it would be all over the media. Trump, who was president at the time, would have been talking about it. All sorts of people would have been talking about it. It never happened.
Yeah.
Now the US is going to start nuclear testing. I have not seen a single article or report about it in the media in the West. A German icebreaker is trapped by the ice. Does anybody talk about it? Does anybody want to mention that it'll have to be the Russians who come to the rescue? Of course not.
It used to be these kind of things gets all the attention because there are people on those ships, right? What happened to them? How long can they? It's very cold there. What are they? How long can they last? Even it would be the focus of the whole world, right?
Yes.
In the past, it's if there is a mine. Remember in Peru or something, there was a mine that the miners were stuck in there. The whole world was paying attention to see
Yes.
Now it's like we don't report that. So
of course not. I mean, it tells you so much about media reporting in the West today.
Yeah, I do notice more and more that they don't report on important issues. They sometimes don't report at all. Sometimes they report one sentence somewhere, that, they don't want you to really see it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, again, the mainstream already losing to alternative media. What they're doing is to accelerate this, right? Why would you even go to the mainstream when they don't?
Exactly.
Tech also something interesting. So ByteDance launched the latest, basically a tool to make videos. It's called the Seedance 2.0. But what's interesting is that it's very realistic. It's really well done. You can use it to very quickly generate some movies. Looks real, and that seems like it really made everybody nervous. So Disney, Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Netflix, they all send ByteDance a letter, cease and desist letter. So they haven't launched the lawsuit yet, but they send this letter basically threatening ByteDance. But here's the thing, ByteDance providing a platform. ByteDance itself is not using any of these copyrighted characters. So you're a lawyer, right? So can you...
I was going to ask you the question. I mean, what exactly are they objecting to? Competition? I mean, to me, isn't competition supposed to be good? I mean, what a cease and desist letter to stop doing what exactly? Providing a service that people might want, developing a technology that people might be interested in. What exactly is the legal wrong here? Because I mean, this is utterly baffling.
I guess they just want to intimidate ByteDance, right? They're sending a letter to threaten and intimidate. Yeah, there's no legal ground for this, right?
None at all. None whatsoever. As you said, if there was a copyright issue, well, there might be something. But I would say about copyright issues, I mean, they never come to this point. Not at this level, because let's say ByteDance was trying to use some copyright that belonged to one of these tech companies, there would be discussions, there would be an agreement of some kind. That's the way it usually works. But anyway, there it is.
Well, there are people who are using this tool to create their own movies, using probably violated some of their characters. But they should go after these people, right? The people who created the content using this tool, but not the tool itself. It's almost like, if I make knives, if somebody used knife to murder somebody, I mean, why?
Well, exactly.
What can I do?
Well, exactly. I mean, I just don't see what the legal case here is at all. But you know what's going to happen? We're going to have a huge stir. It's all going to be the evil ByteDance coming here with all these sinister objectives. And this is all obviously a national security issue, because it always is. And there'll be campaigns to stop it and that kind of thing. I mean, that's the bizarre world we are in, where protectionism, because not just protectionism, but safeguarding of the interests of monopolies suddenly is elevated to the highest level of state policy.
And some people already predicted that. So there's already TikTok videos telling people how to download the VPNs if you want to get to Seedance 2.0, if they block it or something.
Oh, right,
so it's coming. Unfortunately. But it also shows that the Chinese tech is moving very fast.
Absolutely, and which is what the real issue is, isn't it? I mean, it's the fact that they don't want people to use Chinese tech, and they want to limit it as much as possible, because one of the most dangerous things about Chinese tech is precisely that it is advanced, and the fact that it is advanced undermines the story about how much more advanced than everybody else's American tech is. So there is this psychological factor as well.
And it's advanced. It's also a lot of times widely available. It's cheap, so it's not exclusively for certain companies. Yeah,
Exactly.
So That's why they hate China. So,
Yeah.
The Olympics, I don't know how much you pay attention. Ever since they're so, I find the Olympics are very political now. They don't allow the Russian team, but they allow the Israeli team. I got really turned off because of that. Yeah. But nonetheless, there's still no lack of drama, of course. So curling, I would think of all the sports, curling is the most friendly, most low-key and laid-back. Yeah. So now there's a Swedish team accusing the Canadian team of cheating because they were touching the curling twice. You're not supposed to do that. Now, of course, the Canadians said we'd not done that, and then the Swedish team have videos to show it and all that kind of thing. I just feel like the Canadian team, not only they cheated, they clearly cheated, but also the person, Mark Kennedy, he was cursing. He was using all kinds of, he threw a tantrum. Let's put it that way, because he got caught. Okay. But the Olympics saying that's not official video or something, so they didn't really want to punish him. So once that's clear, he started throwing. I would think, okay, once it's clear, I got, I know I did something wrong, but then I would be low key. No, after that, he threw a tantrum. I just feel like right now we're living in a pretty dangerous world that people no longer care about face. Like, be respectful, have certain courtesy or politeness. I don't think they care anymore.
Well, that's absolutely, it's very interesting, by the way, what you've just said, because Canada, for your information, was the most aggressive country in demanding that Russia should be banned from the Olympic movement. And the reason was, again, that the Russians were supposed to have been cheating. So when they're caught cheating, of course, it's, one should take a completely different approach and whatever. But no, I absolutely agree. Now, I have never been very interested in the Olympics myself. My father was passionately so. And my great-grandfather was one of the, who was for a time mayor of Athens, was instrumental in helping to set up the first ever of the modern Olympics, which took place in Greece, in Athens, in the 1890s. And, he played a major role in it. So, the Olympics, if you like, run in my family, though I myself am not very interested in them. And of course, the whole point about Olympics, the whole idea about the Olympics was about young people coming together from around the world, putting aside all politics, putting aside all issues, learning to like each other and become friends and to compete fairly and openly in sports. That was what it was supposed to be all about. It's now become a ghastly circus of money and corruption and power play and all of those things. And it is so far from the original Olympic spirit that used to be that, I just don't know why it continues for them still anymore. I think, and I get to say this, I think China and perhaps Russia and some other countries should set up their own sports competitions. Maybe I'm not saying they shouldn't compete in the Olympics, but they should downgrade their involvement in the Olympics and focus on those and not waste as much time on the Olympics as we see today. And the other thing is the Americans own the Olympics, effectively. And it is what the Americans basically want that seems to dominate things. You hear all these stories that in competitions, in Olympic Games, events are actually scheduled so that they happen at prime time in the United States.
It's totally commercial. Absolutely. Well, you're right. I do think do you know the International Olympic Committee? They are chasing China to host 2036. And China, there's no city in China interested. Just to show you the interest for Olympic in general has gone down quite a bit, right? So they really want China to host it because China has the best facility and everybody had great time. You can count on those things. But right now, there is no city in China interested. They even want like Hangzhou or Sichuan, Chengdu. They want those kind of places. But Hangzhou, Chengdu said, no, we're not interested.
That is so interesting. I mean, when you consider the 2008 Olympics, and what an extraordinary event that was, and the amount of interest China showed in them. Well, that tells you an awful lot.
And I mean, people still celebrate the, Olympic athletes. It's still great achievements, all that sort of thing. But I do think that the interest for them has dropped down quite a bit. It's because Olympic become, like you said, it's too much money involved. And I find it just so highly political, right? It's so double standard on this, treated Russian this way and not Israel. I find that totally unacceptable.
Well, absolutely. It's the same, by the way, in the West. I mean, the Olympics are nowhere near as important as they used to be. I remember when I first came to London in 1968. No, not 19. It was 1972. It was the first Olympics that I was in when I was young, a child in London. And they were the Olympics in Munich in that year. And I remember you used to go and you used to see shops where there was, they were selling televisions, and you'd see the Olympics, the shop windows, people, the television would be on, and you'd see a crowd of people outside the shop window, just looking at screens, following what was going on. And it was far and away the biggest topic was what was going on in the Olympics at that. You don't get any of that enthusiasm or any of that interest anymore.
Well, to conclude today, I wonder whether you agree that I find lots of things now is like people no longer care. You see, the Justice Department, they no longer care the fact that everybody can see they're covering up for this huge scandal, the Epstein scandal. I don't think Pam Bondi even care how people sees that, right? And you have the Olympics, right, that this Mark Kennedy guy. He doesn't seem to care when he's cursing. He himself cheated. And then he was cursing like he didn't do anything wrong. Everybody else was wrong. I mean, if somebody has any self-respect, you wouldn't do something like that. You wouldn't say something like that. He doesn't care how people see him, right? And then you have Trump. He set up this board of peace or something, and he said he's going to put in $10 billion in there, which is from the treasurer, the taxpayers' money, to this place. That he's going to be in charge of $10 billion. I don't know whether that's legal, but he certainly doesn't care how people perceive that, right? So there's no longer people just don't care anymore about
Absolutely. You are completely right. But of course, this is only true in the West. I think elsewhere people do care. It's even a little bit like the Epstein thing that I was saying, that outside the West, people are shocked. Inside the West, people are shocked, but they're not surprised. And I think we have reached that stage where you can see that the ethics within the system have basically gone. It's just become purely about financial gain. And a society that happens to is in very rapid decline. And like the Potomac River in DC, they don't care about that. They don't care.
Drinking water for DC.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk next week. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.